it just got real. As crazy as that sounds to say, Masai Ujiri's vision, Toronto Raptors fans' vision of Giannis Antetokumpo wearing a Toronto Raptors jersey just got real. As, of course, we know the Raptors have multiple avenues to put together a reasonable package to acquire Giannis, but now the odds, they are shifting in terms of the Toronto Raptors' favor in terms of making this deal actually go down. The past couple days, we've been breaking down we are full tilt on Giannis watch here now at this point. The graphic is fully dusted off and needs to get edited from when we had back in 2020, 2021, but it is full tilt. Masai Ujiri is back on the hunt, and frankly, the latest developments are all coming together in the Toronto Raptors' favor to, set up the possibility of Giannis being on this Toronto Raptors team starting next season. So we're going to break down what has changed over the past 24, 48 hours to make this from more of a pipe dream to something that, hey, we can look at and say there is a real possibility of this happening, what the Toronto Raptors would have to give up, because there are multiple avenues for this, whether it's Scottie Barnes or just an amalgamation of different assets to, facilitate this trade. And frankly, how Raptors fans should be feeling about this here right now, because this is absolutely absurd. So lots of stuff to break down out here in this video. But folks, again, you guys have been crushing it, hitting the subscribe button as of late. Lots of stuff happening with the Toronto Raptors here right now. So if you're part of the over 52% of our viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button just yet, we appreciate all the new viewers that are coming in. Make sure you guys hit that sub button so you don't miss a single thing going on with this Toronto Raptors team. But what's going on here? Why do things just get real for this Raptor squad? Because we've been covering all the updates regarding, the Giannis Antetokumpo situation, and I'll give a little summary of it all here right now, because Shams Charania revealed that the two-time MVP Giannis Antetokumpo has not made any firm decisions, but for the first time in his career, he's open-minded about whether his best fit is remaining in Milwaukee or playing elsewhere, according to league sources. So Shams, of course, is one of the more tapped-in insiders, right? We know that when Shams says something, there's some meat to it. This isn't just leaking because of, the wording on it. It's like, he's open to different things. He hasn't demanded a trade, but that's how you plant the seeds. You salt the big trade request. So, fans aren't just super jarred and, Giannis is trading, all that stuff. So that's a report from Shams, and that turned Raptors heads, because we know how Masai Ujiri has been interested for Giannis Antetokumpo for a very, very long time. And then we get some nuggets coming out in regards to from Rich Paul, who is one of the most tapped-in guys in the NBA. He's LeBron's agent. He represents, it feels like, half the NBA. Not Giannis, but he represents a ton of people. And said, you look at Toronto, who have young assets, a big market, he would be huge there. Mentioned that on the Pat McAfee show, directly stating how the Raptors are a legitimate suitor, a fit, for Giannis Antetokumpo. So, Rich Paul's definitely tapped in there. And then, of course, you had the mention from Kendrick Perkins. And mind you, this is all stuff before, there's more and more meat on this bone coming out. And KP came out and basically said, don't sleep on Toronto as a Giannis destination. You have to watch Masai. Go over there with Giannis, Scottie Barnes, RJ Barrett. You give up Ingram quickly, some picks, and how Toronto's acts when they see some daylight. Look at what Kawhi Leonard did. They take over a whole country. So these are the nuggets. These are the sprinkles of things that came out, and then a bombshell kind of dropped yesterday as two teams have emerged as a destination of interest for the two-time MVP, the Toronto Raptors and the Brooklyn Nets. So that came from Scoopy. Again, a guy that has some information, has some intel. I've met the dude, but you take it with a grain of salt. So I broke it down yesterday. If true, this does change everything. If this changes, that things start to move. Well, I've ignored this stuff before. I'm not a sports gambler by any means, but I've ignored Vegas out there in the past. And Kawhi Leonard, we saw the sportsbooks start to adjust, start to change. And you know what myself and Riker made a video on? Because we thought there was no shot, no world the Toronto Raptors had a chance at landing Kawhi Leonard. We broke down a whole video ignoring the Kawhi Leonard stuff, even though the Raptors, we were moving up that ladder every day. We're like, hey, we could get LaMarcus Aldridge if Kawhi's traded. That means the Raptors are talking stuff. This is a play by Masai Ujiri. So since that point, especially with these star players, I've taken these things, how people are reacting, because they have some inside knowledge. They don't want to, the house always wins. basically, it's changing, folks. It's changing. The Toronto Raptors at like plus 500 odds. So virtually impossible. A few days ago, they are plus 550, which is a roughly like 15% chance here now at this point. So it's gone from a pipe dream to something. I mean, if the Dallas Mavericks can get it, get the number 1 overall pick with their 1.2% chance, Raptors at 15 here and climbing, jumping, overtaking a ton of these teams. The Raptors are now in that position tied to the Brooklyn Nets in terms of favorites for landing Giannis Antetokumpo. And frankly, from the buzz, from the chatter, from the reports, you watch Rockets Digest, you watch Spurs Digest, there's no indications. The Spurs do not want to trade Dylan Harper. They are not trying to give up a ton of assets. They believe in so basically the Spurs jumped into a first, and while there was an initial bump in terms of a Giannis trade there at that point, because they ended up landing the 2nd overall pick in this year's NBA draft. And essentially, Dylan Harper is a nice foundation piece for a trade, with the Milwaukee Bucks as a guy that's going back, maybe Castle and stuff. The Spurs, from everything that they're putting out, they are very, very bullish on a backcourt of De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, and Dylan Harper. So they don't want to make that trade. They like their young assets. They like the timeline that they're on. So the Spurs, while they have, a ton of picks and, that superstar kind of future potential superstar kind of guy out there in a Harper, in a Stephon Castle and stuff, I could see them holding on to their assets and not being that fully locked in terms of going all in. The Rockets are a more interesting team. They pushed back Fred VanVleet's player option or team option because we know the Raptors, when he left the Toronto Raptors, he got signed on that absolutely lucrative contract for the Houston Rockets, like $40+ million per year. They pushed back that option so they have more flexibility to either make trades or make something go down. So Fred VanVleet could be a centerpiece and then an amalgamation of picks. But with Giannis wanting to stay in the Eastern Conference, the Nets and the Raptors have overtaken a lot of these different teams. And frankly, that is very, very interesting, very, very encouraging. And frankly, in terms of this being a legitimate possibility, it just makes it real. It makes it real for Toronto Raptors fans. Because, again, Masai Ujiri, we know, has wanted this man on the Toronto Raptors for years, nearly half a decade. Since he was drafted, there's videos in the draft of Masai Ujiri, our guys there, it's gone, and we couldn't get him, all that type of stuff. So now the odds are actually becoming realistic. The Raptors are getting the mix. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed, surefire thing that Giannis is a Toronto Raptor, but it makes things legit. And, the Raptors are an interesting spot because Giannis Antetokumpo wants to play with another top player that would take some of the burden off him. The Nets don't really have that. The Nets don't really have another one of those top guys. They have a bunch of assets, but we're not looking at Cam Thomas as one of those dudes that's another star guy. I mean, the Raptors have Scottie Barnes, they have Brandon Ingram. I'm throwing RJ Barrett out there in the mix. Is someone better than anyone out there on that Brooklyn Nets roster. Obviously some pieces have to go out, of course, in terms of a trade package, but Brandon Ingram's unlikely to be dealt in one of these Giannis trades, just given the contract situation. I don't think you can even, it's a legitimate possibility. So the Raptors have that second star. They have a ton of picks to, make this trade actually feasible. They have young guys that, have a future on this Toronto Raptors team. And, they're one of the best. I know people want to trash on Masai Ujiri. We got videos, regarding the Hawks trying to interest Masai. They have a structure. They do the right moves. They make the right maneuvers. Sure, there's been some misses of late, but, this is a destination that just makes a ton of sense for Giannis. So we'll keep you up to date on all the developments that are happening. This is a very fluid situation, so keep it locked to Raptors Digest. You don't want to miss a single thing that's going on with everything regarding Giannis Antetokumpo and this future potentially with the Raptors. You guys best make this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.